when it comes to the study of the prophecies, nothing that, at least nothing that I say, or most of what I say, or a lot of what I say, is not set in stone. I'm not dogmatic. Okay, prophecy is a subject where we're trying to interpret the symbols, the riddles that God has put there. That's what prophecy is. So and I believe anybody else would be presumptuous to pretend to know everything. So when it comes to these prophecies, sometimes we don't all agree, and that is okay. But as I've said before, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to follow consistent principles. I'm trying to find, well, I say I'm trying to find, I believe that God is directing as well, but sometimes I think I don't hear properly. But I think God is helping us to see consistent principles and to follow the path of inspiration. I think He's doing this. And there are sometimes when we don't have a perfect answer, but what I try to do is to look at what I think is the best option. So at the very least, what I think is happening is that all of us are getting a good understanding of the shape of the book of Revelation, of the background to the book, of the way we should approach the book, of the principles that are involved as we look at the book. That's what I believe we're all getting from these studies on the prophecies. And I think that is the best we can ask for. I am pretty certain that before too long, some of those hard questions are going to be cleared up. I am very certain because I look at the way God has been taking us forward, and I know that it is not that we have a lot of wisdom, but I believe that as we submit ourselves to God, He teaches us. It's His book. He put it there. He put it there for His people at the end of time. How is it possible that He won't open it? How is it possible that we will be left in darkness? That's not possible. So I have great expectations. And in the meantime, we're just going along and looking at these prophecies and trying to see what makes the most sense. So I wanted to say that because I don't want anybody to really live under the misconception that I am trying to say that what I believe is the final truth. But at the same time, I also want to say, I will say this, okay, there are some interpretations that, even respectfully, I have to say that I think they are nonsense. Some interpretations. And I will identify those. There are some things that some people are presenting that don't make sense when we look at the rest of the book. So those are some of the things that I have in the back of my mind. I just wanted to get that out. So we're going to go to the book of Revelation here now and continue our study from where we stopped last week. And last week we stopped with the beast that came up out of the sea. I'm not going to go back over all those verses because we spent a lot of time trying to prove that there's only one beast in Revelation having 7 heads and 10 horns. And I especially pointed out that some people say that this beast, that the beast in chapter 17 is a different beast. And what I spent time trying to demonstrate is that when you look at the different passages and you are consistent and you apply certain simple rules of reason and logic, it's clear. It's the same beast in chapter 11, chapter 13, chapter 17, chapter 19. Same beast. So that's one of the things we looked at last week. Brother Ayayi did ask a question that is a difficult question, and I admit that I don't have a perfect answer to that question. Brother Ayayi asked about the relationship of the beast in chapter 13 and the beast in chapter and the horn in Daniel 7. The horn in Daniel 7 and the beast in Revelation 13. I don't think the answer that I gave is the best answer that I think I have at the moment, but it's not perfectly satisfactory to me. Okay, so that is open for me, and I'm still waiting for a more clear explanation. So that's the best I will say about that. All right. So the last verse we looked at last week was where was in verse 10, where John said that anybody who is to be taken captive, he will go into captivity. Anybody who is to be killed with the sword, he will be killed with the sword. And so there is a call for patience and faithfulness on the part of God's people. The King James Version would make you interpret it a little differently, but if you look at other versions like the NIV, it makes more sense that God is saying, in this crisis that the beast brings upon the earth, there are some who are going to be killed with the sword, some who are going to be taken captive. And so God's people need to exercise patience and to have faith. And this is something that is said in other places, like in chapter 6, where it says that the souls under the altar were told to rest for a little bit because some of their fellow brethren were still to be killed. So it's a consistent theme we see here, that God's people are going to go through great tribulation. In chapter 12, it is said that they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. So these references are here in Revelation that suggest that for God's people, it's not going to be a bed of roses. But I mean, when we are in Christ and when we are with our Father, we can laugh. We love not our lives unto the death. Faith can laugh at death. When you are scared of death and you are tentative about persecution, it's a sign of little faith. It's a sign of little faith. It's a sign that we need to get our eyes more firmly fixed on the mark, upon the person. Because nobody can be with the God of the universe. Nobody can know that he's my daddy and he's on my side and he's with me and be afraid. You can laugh at the storm. You can smile at demons. You can be as steady as a star. You can be as firm as a rock in the face of the greatest threats, when God Almighty is your friend. So first of all, what John does is he gives us a picture of the beast that comes out of it.
You see?
Daniel, you are on mute. All right. Yeah. What John does, first of all, what God does, he gives us a picture of the beast that comes up out of the earth, the sea, out of the sea. This beast is the one that has caused a great deal of debate and controversy. But clearly, as we said last week, that beast is a panoramic. We are getting a panoramic view of the beast because he has 7 heads. And no empire, no kingdom has 7 heads at the same time. We see that they are sequential. We are looking at the entire history of this beast. Now, after this, God takes us to look at another beast. And this is the one that is hereafter. After this chapter, it is referred to as a false prophet. But it's another beast, and it's the only time in Revelation that it is called a beast. Now, this beast has only 1 head. And what that tells us is that we are looking at a single empire or a single great kingdom. Not several of them, not an old empire, not an old series of empires that spanned millennia, that spanned ages. No. The second beast represents an empire in one phase, in one moment of time, that is going to come into being, is going to exist, is going to blaze, and it's going to live, and then it's going to die. No other head. So that's the difference between the first beast and the second beast. The first beast is an old man, it's an ancient entity. But in the end of time, Satan finds a friend to work along with him. So the second beast, John says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, just let's apply a few little rules of reason again, common sense and logic, if we want to call it that. But the first thing that I notice is that, one of the things when we look at Revelation especially is that I believe, and it has proven to be so, that the words that are used, even the words themselves, individual words, are important in Revelation, more important than anywhere else. Because words, in Revelation, words carry meaning, impactful meaning. For example, when it talks about the bottomless pit, go and look at how that is used in each passage. It means something specific. Go and look at what it means when it says that the sea, something comes up out of the sea, as opposed to something coming out of the earth. Now, God is not careless in what he's saying. John says, I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. That's beast number 1, the 10-horned beast, the 7-headed beast. And now he comes and he says, I saw another beast, and this one came up out of the earth. One from the sea, one from the earth. You know what is interesting? I don't know if you remember when we were looking at Revelation 10. Let me go back there quickly and show you something. It says that John says, I saw an angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, a rainbow upon his head. His feet were like the sun, and his face like the sun, his feet like pillars of fire. And it says of this angel, he had in his hand a little book open. He set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot on the earth. Notice again, one is on the sea and the other is on the earth. Everything, like I say, every word in Revelation needs to be examined carefully, because God is not careless in how he uses words. So, you know, you could have seen an angel come down and he stands on the earth, or he stands on the sea. But John is specific. He puts one foot on the sea and one foot on the earth. You think that is accident? No, God is trying to make us know that the message that this angel brings is to cover 2 parts of the earth, or every part of the earth. And this is why I believe that when he talks about the sea, it's specifically referring to not just a multitude of people, multitude of nations, but it's referring to the part of the world that we refer to as the old world. It's the biblical world. It's the world of Medo Persia, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and all the rest of them. It's the world of the Middle East and Africa and Europe. That is the biblical world. That's where the stories of the Bible are concentrated. And that is the area where the beast came from. And that is what the Bible refers to as the sea. Now, there's another area of the earth that the Bible now refers to as the earth. And what we see here in Revelation 10 was that the message that God sent from heaven by this angel covered both the old world and the new world. It was a universal message. It's God's way of saying that the message I'm sending is to go to every place on the planet. So when we come back to Revelation 13 now, and we see another beast coming up out of the earth, that's the first clue as to the identity of this beast. God is saying to us, this empire does not come from the old world. This is a different empire. It comes from a different part of the world. And this part of the world is identified as the earth. So if the sea represents the old world, then we are to look for this new empire, this second beast, as coming up in the new world, in what is called the new world. Now, the new world consists of those nations that were supposedly discovered by Columbus and the other Europeans. Of course, there were people here before, but they were recorded in the biblical record. There's no mention of them. And as far as what people call civilized history is concerned, recorded history, there was nothing known about the Arawak Indians in Jamaica, the Caribs in Guyana, the Red Indians in America. They were kind of not mentioned as significant in the history of the biblical world. When these nations were started to interact with the European nations, they were said to have been discovered. So then it was called the New World. It was called the New World. And in the New World, we have to look for, in the New World, another beast that arises. And we know that a beast represents not a religious power. It represents an empire, a political empire. Go back and look at the beasts of Daniel, and you'll see that each one of them was a political empire. Now, an empire is different from a kingdom, and I'm saying empire deliberately, because a kingdom is a nation that is ruled by a king. Well, today we would say ruled by some governing body, but an empire is a nation that controls other nations. And by this definition, America is a kind of empire. It's not the same, it's not as outstanding or as great as some of the empires of the past, because I mean America governs Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, some of the Virgin Islands, and a few other little places, Hawaii, and so on. So it's not really as dominant as in a sense than some of the old empires. Like Babylon ruled over the nations around, Medo Persia, Greece, Rome. And even at one point, they talked about the British Empire. England ruled over Australia, India, I think South Africa at one time, and all of the Caribbean almost. And plus America. America was once a colony of England. So England was an empire, but it was a part of the European Old World Empire. It never really rose to the prominence of some place like Rome, for example. But anyway, what I'm saying is that America now represents this second beast that comes up out of the earth. We are looking for a power, a political power in the new world, some power that rule over other nations. And if you are looking for a great political power that has the power to influence the whole world, because that is what this second beast does, great political power, then where else could you go than to look at the United States? I mean, would you say Brazil? Brazil is a huge nation, but certainly it has none of the power comparable to the United States. Where else would we say is big in the new world? Brazil, not Argentina. Mexico, certainly nowhere in the Caribbean. Canada is a part of the North American continent, might even be very closely affiliated to the United States. I'd almost want to look at those two as almost one and the same in many respects. But anyway, the nation that we are looking at, the only empire that we are looking at that has this kind of clout in this part of the world is the United States. And so it is easy to put our finger on the United States and to say that the second beast represents the United States. Now, there are other indicators, but that's just the first one. The first one being that it is the greatest military power, greatest political power to arise in what is called the New World. And that's where this beast arises, out of the earth. Secondly, it says he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Especially if you are not one of those extremely biased Americans. Okay, right. No disrespect to my American brethren. We're all not members, not our home is not on this earth. So I can speak freely, even though you're Americans and I am not an American, but I'm telling you that America is speaking like a dragon in many ways. And the Bible says, God tells you that America had 2 horns like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. Now, there is an idea, there's a thinking that America was once lamb-like in its nature. And there's some truth to this. And they say later on it turned and it began to develop dragon-like principles. But I'm going to say, when you look at the statement itself, superficially, what it says is that it doesn't give you, it does not give you as a sequence. It gives you more as a matter of a disguise. Like it speaks like a lamb, but from the beginning it has a dragon's heart. Now, is this true? Because, you know, there's so much history that says America was at one time the home of the free, the land of the brave. It was a place where people came to find refuge. As a matter of fact, we believe that it was a place where God sent those who were escaping persecution in Europe. They found refuge in the New World, on the shores of America, a lot of them. But I'm going to say that inherent in worldly politics is the principle of the dragon. Anywhere on this planet, you find any nation that becomes prominent, outstanding politically or militarily, you are looking at a tool of Satan. Remember that Satan is the God of this world. The only time you can become great in the world is when you have submitted yourself to the control of the principles of Satan. And you remember that when Satan came to Jesus and he offered to give him the kingdoms of the world in a moment. Remember what he said? He said, all this is given into my hand, and I can give it to anybody that I want. And he was telling the truth. So there's no nation on this earth. There are many. I know that all of us are aware of there's a group of people in America, the evangelicals, who are living under the illusion. They seem to think that America is the new Israel, the new Israel. America is the new favored people of God. It's a dangerous and a perverted way of thinking. And I'm not saying this because I'm against America. Okay, there are so many of us in this room who are just as committed to the cause of God as I am, and we're all brothers and sisters. But the nation itself, the political system, the politics of this world is in the hand of Satan, and he uses it. It just takes time for him to develop to the place where he can use it to try to destroy God's people. And that is what we see happening here with this two-horned beast. This two-horned beast is a friend of the first beast. And the both of them will work together to try to destroy the knowledge of God out of this planet. So there are two horns like a lamb, and I understand this to mean that they are parents of this empire is a Christ-like appearance. And I think this deceives a lot of people. But there's a verse, let me look at a verse that something that Jesus said, which I would like to apply here. Jesus said in Matthew 12 and verse 34. It's kind of significant. He said, generation of vipers, how can you being evil speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. That's the principle I want to look at. What does the mouth speak? What comes out of your mouth? What comes out of your mouth is based on what comes out of your heart, what is in your heart. What is in your heart? And that's why I'm saying that it seems to me that from the beginning there was something inherently wrong, because it says he speaks like a dragon. And if you follow the principle, Jesus says, why do you speak like a dragon? It's because you have a dragon's heart. So somewhere in the heart of the system, somewhere in the principles that underlie the system, there is a dragon principles. And so when the mouth, when it begins to speak, it speaks like a dragon. Okay, I see this when I look at this verse. Now verse 12 says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. So first of all, he exercises or he practices all the power of the first beast. What was that power? Go back up a little bit and you'll see what was that power. The first beast, it says of the first beast, the dragon gave him his power, his seat and great authority. So where did the power come from? Where does the power of this world come from? Where does the power come from to the great empires of this world? The dragon gave him his power. It's the power of Satan. Like we have studied here in this room, Satan is not allowed to personally intervene and to harass human beings. He doesn't use lightning bolts and energy balls. He can't use it. God does not permit him to do it. What God permits him to do is to work upon the hearts of men, to instill his principles in the hearts of those who will listen. And so Satan takes over the hearts of people and uses them to develop these systems. So the power of Satan, the influence of Satan is given to this beast, and he gives him his seat and great authority. So when it says that you go down that the dragon this second beast exercises all the power of the first beast. You can see that this is talking about a power that is just as satanically controlled as the first beast was. Whatever you saw happening through the power of Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, Rome, it's the same power, the same authority that is now being exercised by America. Now, there's another little phrase here. Like I said, don't ignore any word. He exercises all the power of the first beast. Where? Before him. What does that mean? Well, if you look at it as a picture, literally, you see one beast standing in front of the other beast. But that's the imagery. But what does it mean practically? What I understand is to mean is that at the time when America is exercising all this power, the European beast is still present and still exercising his power. Both beasts, both empires are standing face to face. It's not like the European beast disappeared. Then the American beast came into power. No. What the prophecy says is that the second beast, America, is exercising all the power of the European beast in the presence of the European beast. In other words, both of them are in a position of power at the same time. And both of them are exercising this power at the same time. It is before him or in his presence. I think that's what it says in another version. It says, well, here in the NIV it says on its behalf. Let me see if I can find one. Yes, the NASB says he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. All right, so that what this is saying to me is that we're not talking about one passes and then the other comes along. No, they are both coexisting and they are both working together. Both of them, these two beasts. Now, here is a part that really becomes interesting and another difficult part for us to interpret. It says he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So, if we are consistent, if we're going to be consistent in the way we interpret things, then when it says he causes the earth, then if we are consistent based on what I've been saying, then when it says the earth here, it should focus primarily on this part of the world. This statement is not focused so much on the old world. It's focused on what we call the new world. In other words, what we're saying is that America is going to cause the people who live in this part of the world to do honor, to do homage to those to the old world beast. It's going to cause those who live here to worship the first beast whose deadly wound has been healed. So it seems to me, if we are consistent, and I keep saying that, if we are consistent, it seems to me that what happens is that in the old world, you have the beast, the first beast from the sea. He still exists there. He's still alive there. And he's still working there. In fact, he got a deadly wound and the wound was healed. And everybody's amazed at this old world beast. And then in the other part of the world, where the influence of that beast is not so strong, a second beast begins to exercise the same kind of power. And the second beast now takes control of the people in this part of the world and causes the people in this part of the world to give honor and respect to the first beast, the one in the other side of the world. Okay, so I hope that what I'm saying up to this point you're understanding. I'm kind of tempted to draw the picture, but I think it's so simple that we should be able to follow what I've been trying to say so far. All right, so to reiterate or to say that in another way, the American beast is not focusing on worship for him of himself. The American beast is focused on worship of the European beast. Now, I know that when we look at it superficially, it doesn't appear to make sense if you look at what is happening in the world today. It seems to me that if you look at the world and what is going on, it seems like everybody is like America is a major power, and everybody is looking to America, and it would be more like everybody is trying to worship America. It would seem this way because if you look at the world, the dominant power in the world today is the United States, even though there are attempts to shift the balance of power, but it seems like it will be a long time before that ever happens. So America is the dominant power. But notice, according to the prophecy, America uses her power and her dominance to focus worship on the first beast, upon the European beast. And if you think of this in terms of military power, it may not be very clear to you if you think that America is trying to make people look upon Europe as the greatest military power in the world, and you'll be wrong. Because America is not trying to do that. When it comes to military might and economic might, America is interested in America being the greatest economic and military power on the world. So in what way would America try to focus worship on the first beast? If America is the greatest military and economic power, in what way would America try to focus worship on the first beast? And we're going to come to the mark of the beast a little later on. But what I'm trying to say to you right at this moment, from this point, I'm saying it seems to me that when it says America will cause the world to worship the first beast, think about what I'm saying now. What I understand this to mean is that America will cause the earth and those who dwell in it to submit to something that the first beast is imposing. The first beast is promoting something contrary to the mind of God, because worship has to do with the will of God. Worship has to do with respect and honoring God. That's what worship is about. Worshiping God is not so much about who has the greatest military power and who you acknowledge as having the greatest military or economic power. Worshiping God has to do with your submissiveness to what God considers your proper worship, proper behavior. We worship God by obedience to God. When you can set yourself to induce people, the whole world, for example, to turn against something that God says is right, then what you are doing is making people worship that thing above God. So I'm speaking in generalizations at the moment, but I want us to understand the principle. It would be a very foolish person who thinks that what is happening here is that people are going to bow down, literally fall on their knees and pray to a beast or pray to a nation. That happened in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. That happened in the time of the Caesars. The world has advanced to the place where worship is not so blatant and barefaced. Worship of men is not so blatant and barefaced anymore. It is more subtle. Revelation is dealing with the subtle spiritual implications. So you worship by giving allegiance to somebody, by respecting somebody above God. That is what worship is. The one that you yield yourself to obey that person above God, that person is who you worship. So in some way, the first beast has some principle that is in defiance of God, some principle that is in defiance of God. It's not military power, it's not economic power. It's a principle that is in defiance of God. And the second beast takes that principle and pushes it upon the earth. This is what it means. So right from this point, we can begin to think along these lines. And I think, as I said, I'm trying to follow consistent principles in how we interpret it. And so that is what I think. So America is causing the world to worship the old world beast. by introducing a principle and imposing the principle that really is a highlight of that old world beast. All right, let's go to verse 13. Now, I'm going to be a little controversial with verse 13, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. It says, and he doeth great wonders. That's the American beast. He doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Let me read a part of the next verse. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Now, like everybody else, like most of us, I interpreted this a certain way because I was taught that way. But I'm going to again follow some principles and some ideas and ask you to consider them. The book of Revelation is absolutely a book of symbols. When you read something in Revelation, the first thing you should do is to consider that it is figurative or symbolic. Are there some things in Revelation that are literal? Probably, but they are the minority. Okay? From the moment you start with chapter 4, you start with 4 beasts in heaven. One has the head of a cow, one has the head of an eagle, one has the head of a man, one has the head of a lion. That's not literal. Next thing you see, there are 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. I don't believe that is literal. If you do, we certainly don't think alike. Next thing you see, there's a slain lamb. There's a lamb, as it were, slain. Is that real? Next thing you know, you see 4 horses riding across heaven. Is that real? Then you see souls under the altar. Is that real? Everything that you are looking at, the default position is that it is symbolic. So, because people conclude that this beast is a religious power, and they conclude that these 2 beasts are religious, because as most of us know, many people believe that this first beast represents the Roman Catholic institution, and they believe that the second beast represents the Protestant churches of America. And I used to believe this because I took what I was told, but at the same time, when I'm studying for myself now, I see that this is not consistent. A beast represents a political empire. A beast does not represent a religious institution. You go to the book of Daniel, you don't see a religious institution. You see political empires. That's what a beast represents. God represents political empires as wild beasts. And sometimes if it's a minor kingdom, it's represented as a horn. So God is consistent. So when it says that this beast does great wonders and makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, of course, people thought it refers to a religious system doing religious miracles. And so if you look at this literally, what it would suggest is that people like maybe Kenneth Copeland or Benny Hinn or some of these people would actually come to the place where they actually call down fire from heaven and actually do great miracles that would convince people that, you know, they are God's wonder-working people. That's the interpretation that I learned. But now as I'm thinking about this and I'm seeing that this is not a religious power, it's a political power, then my understanding of the wonders and the miracles has to change. Because remember, again, Revelation is dealing with symbols, figurative symbols. If God says that this empire, if God represents it as a false prophet, consistently, God is going to use the language of prophecy. He's going to use the language of miracles and signs and wonders, because he's consistent in following through on the analogy. He starts to use a certain symbolism and he's going to continue with the symbolism. What do we understand by this? Well, in the Old Testament, it literally happened that Elijah called down fire from heaven. And as a matter of fact, when you read about the testimony of the two witnesses in Revelation 11, it says they have power to shut heaven that it should not rain in the days of their prophecy. And it actually speaks about miracles, the power to do miracles. But here now, we are talking about a figurative false prophet. Why is America called a false prophet? Is it because it makes prophecies? No. There's nowhere that we're told that there are any prophecies coming from the mouth of this false prophet. Why is it called a false prophet? You have to understand what is the purpose of a prophet. Now, who was the greatest prophet of all? It was John the Baptist. What did John prophesy? Anybody can tell me one thing that John prophesied? The only thing that John prophesied was when he said, he shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. That's all he said. He says the one who is coming is going to baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. That was the only thing he prophesied. Yet it was said that he was the greatest prophet. Why was he called the greatest prophet? The work of a prophet is not primarily to foretell the future. The work of a prophet is primarily to be the mouthpiece for somebody else. That's the work of a prophet. John the Baptist was the greatest prophet because he was God's mouthpiece. He was God's agent for preparing the world for the coming of the Messiah. He told the world that this is the Messiah. The Messiah has arrived. That was John's great work as a prophet. So the point I'm making is that a prophet is not necessarily foretelling the future. A prophet is God's mouthpiece, God's agency for going before the face of somebody else. So John the Baptist was Jesus's prophet. And so when it says here that this two-horned beast is a false prophet, what it means is that this two-horned beast, he is going before the face of the first beast. Remember, it says that he does these wonders where? He does these wonders in the presence of the first beast. So he goes before the face of the first beast and he calls attention to the first beast and he asks people to worship the first beast. This is why he's called a prophet. So America is actually, and I see Brother Ian, America is actually an agent for promoting the principles of the first beast, for drawing attention to certain principles that belong to the first beast. You wanted to say something, Ian?
Yes, I was just wondering if it's kind of strange that you mentioned John a while ago, because John was the one who pointed and mouthpiece basically for God to point people to Christ. Now we're talking about the false prophet here who is doing basically the same thing, pointing people to the first beast.
That's the point I was going to make.
Okay.
The point I wanted to make. I wanted to make the point that this is why he's called a false prophet, because his ministry is to promote the first beast. His work is to go before the face of the first beast and to draw attention to the first beast. And again, I want to emphasize, he's not drawing attention to the first beast to turn the first beast into some military or political power. He's drawing attention to some behavior, to some way in that there's something about that first beast where it stands in defiance of God, where it opposes God's way. And the second beast takes it up and is promoting it. And that is why the second beast is called a false prophet. He's drawing attention to the principles of the first beast. That's why he's called a false prophet. Now, it says that he does great wonders. And so we have to interpret these great wonders in a similar way. Okay? As I said, God is following through on the analogy, and God is saying that a prophet would do great wonders, a prophet would do miracles. So how does a kingdom or an empire, how does an empire do miracles? What does it mean that an empire, a political empire, is doing miracles? What we are looking at is what is the effect that miracles do? What is the effect that is brought about by miracles? Miracles impress people. Miracles cause people to put down their defense, and miracles cause people to turn their attention to whatever is being focused on. That's the purpose of a miracle in this context. So what this is saying is that America is able to do certain things, certain extraordinary things that cause people to begin to fall in line with what America is trying to promote. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So it's not to say that America really, there's somebody in America who actually speaks to the sky and fire comes down from heaven. Neither in America nor in the evangelical churches. No, I don't believe this is what it means. I believe it means that America carries out some activities that are dramatic and impressive to people, that cause people to begin to give their loyalty and to commit themselves to the cause that America is promoting. I can give you a quick example of what might be. I'm not saying it is, but an example of what I mean. I know that I don't even want to know how to talk about it on the platform here. I'm going to talk in a kind of code, because Brother Howard, one of the sermons that he did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, YouTube took it down. The one that talked about some questions or some principles. YouTube took it down. They said it violated their principle about false information. Something he said about, I don't know if it was about the COVID or whatever. I don't know what it was, but he said, and they said he was giving false medical information, and they took down the videos. So I kind of have to be careful what I say. But I know that there are some things that happen that many people speak about. They're called conspiracy theories. A lot of people believe that the powers that be in that country are deliberately doing certain things to cause the people in that country to change their attitude and change their approach. They are getting the people are now beginning to call for the government itself to take away their rights. Some of the I don't know if it is real, or it is a hoax, or it is a setup, but I have never seen any place in the world that there are so many mad people who just go around shooting people for nothing. I've never seen it. In other countries, people murder people for a reason, but in America, they just come into a place and just shoot 30 people for nothing. Whether it's a school or a nightclub or a church or a theater, they just step in and shoot people for nothing. There's no place like it on the earth where they just kill people mindlessly. And a lot of people think that it is a setup. A lot of people think that, the reason behind it is that Americans are being set up so that they can ask the government to take away some of their own freedoms. I mean, most of us know that what happened with the recent so-called disease that was going around, and how it was an opportunity where people began to ask for their own rights to be taken away, to safeguard themselves, as they thought. They were asking that their own neighbors should be monitored and locked up. In some countries, it was worse than others, but in a situation that seems so clearly manipulated, things were happening where people are asking for the authorities to take away some of their rights and some of their freedoms in order to make them safer. And this is something, this I believe may constitute some of these wonders, amazing things that this two-horned beast does. Some of them, it imposes itself. Like what happened with the Twin Towers, a lot of people believe that this was something that was orchestrated. I don't want to say too much. Again, I don't want people to I don't want Google or YouTube to take down the video, but you all can read between the lines and get an idea of what I'm saying. So I believe that when we talk about these miracles that happen, what we are talking about is situations that are created by this beast in order to impress the minds of people, because that's what a miracle does. It impresses your mind, it amazes you and makes you submit. It amazes you to the point where you say, this is irresistible, I submit. So there's something that happens to persuade people and to deceive those that dwell on the earth or in this part of the world by means of these events, these miracles, which this two-horned beast has the power to do in the presence of this beast. And what does it use the power to do? What does America use the power to do? Look at what it uses this authority to do. It says to the people who dwell on the earth, that is in this part of the world, that is in America, it says to the people of America that they should make an image of the first beast. They should make an image of the European beast. Now, what do we mean by this? What does this mean? Notice who makes the image, who is persuaded to make the image. It's those that dwell on the earth. Okay, this is talking about the people who live here, the people who live in the Americas, especially in the United States. It's more like the United States than, say, the Caribbean or any of these lesser places. It's America mostly. Okay, the governing authorities in America deceive the people who live in America, saying to the people who live in America, and I hope this can pass through YouTube's algorithms, saying to the people who live in America that they should create a system of government that is similar to the system that existed in Europe back in the days when Europe was persecuting the world. In other words, what they will institute is a system of domination and control. Remember, under the beast powers of ancient times, this is what happened. There was absolute domination. The king could just throw you into the fire or into the lions, then he could do whatever he wanted. They could take Christians and set them on fire and light up the Garden of Nero at night. They would throw Christians to the wild beast. This power was in the hand of the government back in the days of the first beast, when it was in the height of its power. Now, Americans are persuaded to create a similar system in America. A democracy, a country that is not a dictatorship. The Americans are persuaded to do this, and what persuades them? They are made to understand that for their own safety, they need to do this. Why do they believe it is for their safety? Because the miracles are the events that have been orchestrated, make them believe this is the way we are to keep safe. We need to give away our rights to the government. We need to give the government absolute right, or else we are in jeopardy. So they persuade the people that they are to make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. And I tell you something, I live out in the fringes, okay? I walk among those on the lunatic fringe. I'm not a great conspiracy theorist, but I believe in some of them. I believe in some of them, and I listen to all of them. And I believe that something is going on. Something is going on. And I've noticed with amazement, okay, in Australia, let me tell you, for example, all of you were listening to what was going on in Australia recently. And all that they are planning to do, Australia and New Zealand, where the draconian measures that were taken during the recent quote unquote emergency, how they locked down the place and locked down the movement of the people. And people like us who were on the outside looking in, we were thinking that as soon as these people are free, they will kick out that government for good. They had an election in Australia recently. I was flabbergasted. Do you know they voted back the same people into government? So look here, because you and I are the mad people out on the periphery. We think everybody's outraged as we are. No, 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 no. The majority of the people are with the system. The majority of the people have been deceived and they stand with the system. Even in America, it's the same thing. The majority of the people stand with the system. So there are the people who will be persuaded to make the image to the beast, to make an image. In other words, what it means, this image of the beast, what we are being told is that America will set up a system of government that follows the same principles that existed in Europe in the time when it persecuted people. America is going to set up a system of government that has the power to take away your liberty, to persecute people because of your loyalty to the principles of God. That is what this prophecy is saying. It says in verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. In other words, what this is saying is that when this system is set up in America, it's not just a token system, it's not a paper government. It will have teeth. So it's not like they set up some institutions and they are there just as a figurehead. No. When this institution is set up in America, it will have teeth. It will be this image of the beast, this system that mirrors the behavior of the first beast. It will have the power to execute the same kind of behavior like the first beast. Because it says it had power to give life unto the image, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So,
question when you can, David.
okay, Brother Joel, probably now would be a good time.
Oh, it is a good time or not?
It is because it can come between my two comments.
Yes, and it might be an unfortunate question because I just got here, but I hope it's not. This image of the beast, this image of the beast system that is being set up, does it have a relationship to those who rule with the beast for an hour? The 10 kings who rule with the beast for an honor. I understand that it wouldn't, because we have the 10 horn system more than likely being a part of the beast on which the woman is riding, as we learned last week and from the previous week. But as I think about this image that is going to be handing support to the beast system, and if this beast system, as you say, is a satanic system, unlike anything we have ever seen, in the fact that it comes up out of the bottomless pit and it's the 8th king, how do I practically understand this image of the beast, if not as a system of carnal, of men that is supporting this spiritual system that is coming against God's people? Am I way off?
No, might have been before you got here, but I pointed out that the second beast is exercising his power in the presence of the first beast. In other words, they coexist. They work together. This second beast is operating in one part of the world because it specifies that he's operating in the earth, while the second beast is specifically stated to have come out of the sea. So, and then the statement says he has power to do these miracles in the sight of the beast. It says another place, it is before the beast. And I understand these two phrases to indicate that the power of the second beast is being exercised while the first beast is still alive and well. And we know it is so because the first beast continues even to the coming of Jesus. So both beasts coexist. And they are both exercising the same kind of power in different parts of the world. That's my understanding. So when you come to Revelation 17, the emphasis is on the first beast. Revelation 17 does not bring the second beast into the picture. So I believe that there's a reason for this. But at the end in chapter 19, you see they are both there. The beast and the false prophet are both there. So they are coexisting and they are working together. Just that Revelation 17 zeroes in on the career of the first beast and how he operates in the final moments of time. But absolutely, I believe it's the same period of time.
Okay, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Okay, Brother Joel.
David?
Yes, Brother Ray.
I got a question. What wound does the first beast needs to be totally healed in order for the second beast, the United States, to make an image to it and give it its power? What wound is there to be healed that we could see a sign that it's gotten its power back like in the days of old?
Well, it's a hard question because when it says the wound was healed, I understand that the first beast, the head that was wounded, I believe it represented the disintegration of the Roman Empire. The characteristic of the beast, what makes the beast a beast, is that it exists as a cohesive kingdom. Once it's fragmented, it no longer exists as the beast. And so the beast, the Roman beast, was fragmented back in the 5th century. And so I believe that this was a deadly wound. Now, since the year 500 and onwards, in Europe, there have been multiple attempts to rebuild the Roman Empire. There have been a lot of people who arose in Europe, like Napoleon and Charlemagne and these people, who tried to reconstruct the Roman Empire, and they never succeeded. Now, the best effort that we have ever seen is the European Union. It's the closest Europe has ever come to a reunified empire. And what we know is that the European Empire is weak. It has the strength of iron and the weakness of clay. It's a tenuous union which is in danger of fragmenting continually. So we have again a unified Europe to some extent, but it is not very strong. And I believe that this reunified Europe is a kind of re-emergence of the Roman Empire, but in a weak form. And I think that is what the Bible suggests when it says that they shall not cleave one to another. It suggests that it will be there, but it will never again have the same kind of power that it had in the future. So I think that healing of the deadly wound happened with the emergence of the European Union. So I think it already happened, Brother Ray. And so we are looking for the second beast now to begin to exercise the same kind of power.
Okay, so on a follow-up question, just to see if we can make any sense out of this, could it also possibly be because Rome had the power to war? It was very great. It was very strong. It was conquering left to right. And could it be that that's the wound that it had? The power to make war with other nation was taken away and it was weakened. Could that also be a possibility?
Yes, absolutely, because it was not only the power to persecute Christians, but it was an empire because it had the power to politically and militarily and economically dominate other nations and subjugate them. And that is what Rome lost. But even today, we can see the European Union kind of operating like that in a way because politically and economically, America and Europe have come together to try to subjugate Russia. Right now, in almost everything that happens around the world, politically and militarily, when America is set out to do something, Europe is right there with America and vice versa. So they are still exercising that military and political power. But I believe that the mark of the beast, of course, is going to be focused more upon a moral issue, but we have yet to see that emerge. Now, I'm going to stop at verse 15, but let me just finish commenting on verse 15, and then we're going to stop for the evening. So, it says that the ultimate penalty, ultimately, the beast will bring the world or bring the earth to the place that those who do not worship the image of the beast will be killed. So what does this mean? How can we analyze this? What it is saying is that when America sets up this system of government, it will have teeth. As I said, it won't be a token government, it won't be a paper government, but it will be able to speak, and furthermore, it will have power, so that the people in America who will not submit to the system will be killed, it says. And somebody will say, well, maybe that's also symbolic, maybe that's also figurative. And I suppose somebody could say this, but the point is that there are so many references in the book of Revelation in different settings to God's people being killed that I'm tempted to believe that this is a literal statement, because it says they love not their lives unto the death. It says here's a call for patience on the part of the saints. If anybody is to be killed with the sword, he will be killed with the sword. There are so many statements that suggest there's going to be killing of God's people. And it seems incredible to me that in a system that has been touted as the most civilized, as the most advanced civilization on the planet, that a government could come to the place where it goes it goes to the point where it begins killing its own people because of a moral issue. Now that's hard to believe, but I suppose if we look at what happened in the recent health situation, you can tell that if this thing had continued some more, and if there had been more propaganda, the people themselves would have demanded the death of some people. They would have required the government to kill some people. Some of the statements that I saw people make on social media about what they should do to some of these people, I was blown away. And I am reminded that human beings are only civilized when there's not a crisis. And take that from me. Human beings are only civilized when there's not a crisis. You go into a society of the most, what they would call genteel people, the most civilized. God said of the Jews that the delicate woman who was so delicate that she would not allow the sole of her foot to touch the ground. God said when the crisis came, you know what they would do? They would eat their own children. God understands human nature and human psychology. That's human nature doesn't become civilized. Human nature doesn't become converted. It is only subdued in times of peace and safety. But when crisis comes, they have a saying in Jamaica, when trouble take man, picnic should fit him. Okay? And it means that when trouble comes upon people, any desperate measure, they will take it. And that is what is going to happen. A crisis, a created crisis that will cause the people there to submit their rights and their freedom to a system that will have the power to kill its own people. This is what the Bible says, and I believe the Bible. And it looks incredible, it looks impossible, but I think that we are going to see this happen, and we're going to prove that the word of God is true. One of the things I would never have believed in my life, everybody, you know, you would never have believed that you would have lived to see an age when men are getting married to men. You never believed it. If you did, you have a greater imagination than me. I never thought it would ever happen. It happened overnight. I never thought I'd come to see the place where if you don't say to a man, miss or she, you can end up in. I never thought I would see the day when some of the things they are suggesting that you should be teaching children in school. I have to say, is the world mad? And even though the answer is yes, I am astonished to see the degree of madness that has come upon the planet. So I don't put anything past humanity. What the Bible says, we are going to see it happen. And the best we can do is that we keep ourselves bound up in our Father and in His love. We have a rock of safety. We have a place of refuge. There's a place where we can dwell in the secret place of the Most High. Hallelujah. That's what we have to make sure, brothers and sisters, that we are locked into our Father and resting under the shadow of His wings.